When two local cops targeted a black mother and her 8-year-old son at an exclusive beach resort pool, they never expected the devastating consequences that would follow. What happened in the next 60 minutes didn't just expose their racist brutality, it unraveled a secret network of illegal surveillance and destroyed their corrupt empire forever. Marcus Montenegro had been enjoying a quiet family vacation with his wife Shante and son Zaire at the luxurious Ocean View Beach Resort, but nobody knew the quiet father was actually a CIA operations officer, trained to dismantle criminal organizations that threatened national security. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the ocean as the Montenegro family finished packing their SUV. 8-year-old Zaire bounced excitedly on his toes, clutching his new shark print swim shorts against his chest. His dark eyes sparkled with the promise of endless beach days and pool adventures ahead. "Did you remember my goggles?" Zaire asked, peering into the packed suitcases that filled their driveway. The suburban street was quiet, neighbors still sleeping as the family prepared for their long-awaited vacation. "Right here, baby," Shante replied, holding up the bright blue goggles that had become his prized possession. At 34, she moved with the graceful efficiency of someone who'd mastered the art of family logistics. Her teacher's instincts showed in how she double-checked every detail, ensuring nothing important was forgotten. Marcus emerged from the house, his 6.2 frame carrying the last of their bags with easy strength. At 38, he possessed the quiet confidence that came from years of CIA operations, though his family knew him simply as a government analyst who worked long hours and traveled frequently. The cover story had become second nature, a necessary deception that protected both his missions and his loved ones. "Everyone ready for the best family vacation ever?" Marcus asked, lifting Zaire onto his shoulders. The boy's laughter echoed across the peaceful neighborhood as they loaded into their vehicle. The drive to Ocean View Beach Resort took them along scenic coastal highways, past rolling hills that gradually gave way to palm trees and ocean views. Zaire pressed his face against the window, watching seabirds dive into the waves while Shante navigated with their carefully planned route. "Look, Dad," Zaire called out as the resort came into view. The Ocean View Beach Resort rose majestically against the coastline, its white towers gleaming in the afternoon sun. Luxury cars filled the circular driveway where uniformed valets moved with practiced efficiency. Marcus pulled up to the entrance, taking in the opulent surroundings with the trained eye of someone accustomed to assessing environments for threats. The resort screamed exclusivity, from its marble fountains to its perfectly manicured tropical gardens. Other guests moved through the space with the casual confidence that came from wealth and privilege. At the reception desk, the clerk's professional smile flickered almost imperceptibly as the Montenegro family approached. Her fingers tapped rapidly on the keyboard as she processed their reservation, eyes occasionally darting to other guests in the lobby. "Welcome to Ocean View Beach Resort," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "I have your reservation here, Mr. Montenegro." She handed over their key cards with practiced efficiency, though her movements seemed slightly rushed. "You're in Suite 418, Ocean View. Please note that our pool and beach facilities have specific guidelines for all guests." The elevator ride to the 4th floor was quiet, except for Zaire's excited chatter about swimming and building sandcastles. Other guests in the elevator shifted slightly, creating subtle distance while maintaining polite facades. Their suite was spectacular, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing an unobstructed view of the Pacific Ocean. Zaire immediately ran to the balcony, pressing his hands against the glass as waves crashed rhythmically against the beach below. "Can we go swimming right now?" he asked, already reaching for his swim shorts. "Let's unpack first, sweetie," Shante replied, though her heart ached at his eager expression. Something about the staff's demeanor had left her feeling unsettled, a teacher's intuition that recognized subtle hostility disguised as politeness. Marcus methodically surveyed their suite, old habits making him catalog exit routes and potential security concerns. The luxury appointments were impressive, but he noticed the unusual number of decorative objects that could conceal surveillance equipment. Years of CIA training had taught him that the most elegant settings often hid the darkest secrets. As they unpacked, other guests passed their door with increasing frequency, conversations falling silent as footsteps approached their suite. The resort's atmosphere felt charged with an undercurrent of tension that had nothing to do with vacation excitement. "Tomorrow morning, first thing," Marcus promised Zaire, who was arranging his swim gear with meticulous care. "We'll hit that pool and show everyone your underwater somersaults." But what none of them knew was that their arrival had already been noted by forces that viewed their presence as a threat to carefully maintained order. In the security office below, cameras tracked their movements, while phone calls were made to local contacts who specialized in making problems disappear. The Montenegro family settled in for their first night, unaware that their peaceful vacation was about to become a battlefield where dignity, courage, and justice would be tested in ways they never imagined. What they didn't realize was that some battles choose you. The next morning brought perfect beach weather, with gentle waves and clear skies that promised an ideal day for swimming. Marcus stood on their balcony sipping coffee, his trained eyes automatically scanning the beach and pool areas below. Years of overseas operations had made such surveillance second nature, though he tried to keep his analytical instincts hidden during family time. "Look at that pool," Zaire breathed, his face pressed against the sliding door. The resort's infinity pool seemed to merge seamlessly with the ocean beyond, its crystal-clear water already dotted with early morning swimmers. A few elderly couples occupied lounge chairs, while two women did lazy laps in the deeper sections. Shante joined them on the balcony, wrapping her arms around her husband's waist. "It's beautiful," she said softly, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. "The staff yesterday seemed distant." Marcus nodded, having noticed the same thing. "Probably just maintaining professional boundaries," he said, though his CIA training had detected something more troubling in their interactions. The subtle glances, the hurried service, the way conversation stopped when they approached, all classic indicators of coordinated hostility. "Can we go swimming now?" Zaire asked for the third time in 10 minutes, already changing into his shark print swim shorts. His 8-year-old excitement was infectious, temporarily pushing aside his parents' concerns. "After breakfast, buddy," Marcus replied, ruffling his son's hair. "Need to fuel up for all that swimming." The restaurant overlooked the pool area, its floor-to-ceiling windows providing panoramic views of the resort's aquatic playground. Marcus chose a table that offered clear sightlines to multiple exits, another habit from his operational training that Shante had learned not to question. As they studied their menus, Marcus noticed two men at the bar who didn't quite fit the resort's typical clientele. Both carried themselves with the aggressive confidence he recognized from law enforcement officers, their casual clothes unable to completely conceal their authoritarian bearing. The older one appeared to be in his late 40s, with weathered features and cold eyes that swept the restaurant with predatory interest. His companion was younger, maybe early 30s, with the kind of swagger that came from unchecked power and minimal supervision. "Those are police officers," Marcus murmured to Shante, indicating the men with a subtle nod. His CIA training had taught him to identify law enforcement from any distance, and something about these two set off internal alarms. Their server approached with the kind of professional smile that seemed painted on. "Good morning. What can I get for you folks today?" Her cheerfulness felt forced, and Marcus noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she took their order. Throughout breakfast, the officers maintained their positions at the bar, occasionally glancing toward the Montenegro family's table. Marcus kept his own surveillance subtle, using reflective surfaces and peripheral vision to monitor their behavior. Zaire finished his pancakes quickly, his excitement building as other families began migrating toward the pool area. "Please, can we go swimming now?" he pleaded, practically vibrating with anticipation. Marcus looked at Shante, who nodded despite her lingering unease. "All right, champ, let's go show that pool what you've got." They gathered their things, towels, sunscreen, Shante's book, and Zaire's collection of pool toys. As they walked through the restaurant, Marcus felt the officer's attention sharpen, though he maintained his casual family man facade. The pool area was magnificent in the morning light. The infinity edge created the illusion that swimmers could dive directly into the ocean, while comfortable lounges provided perfect vantage points for parents to supervise their children. Shante applied sunscreen to Zaire's dark skin with practiced efficiency, making sure to cover his ears and the back of his neck. "Remember the rules," she said, her teacher's voice carrying gentle authority. "No running on the wet surfaces. Stay where I can see you and listen to the lifeguard." "I know, Mom," Zaire replied, but he was already edging toward the water, his excitement barely contained. Marcus positioned their chairs strategically, providing his wife with shade, while maintaining his own clear view of the entire pool area. Old habits from dangerous assignments made him catalogue potential threats and escape routes, even during family leisure time. "Go ahead, buddy," he told Zaire, who didn't need further encouragement. The boy entered the water via the shallow end steps, his face lighting up at the perfect temperature. Other guests smiled at his obvious joy as he began practicing his swimming strokes. A few elderly couples nodded approvingly at his good pool manners, and two mothers with children his age seemed to be considering whether to encourage interaction. But Marcus's attention was drawn to movement at the pool bar. The two officers had relocated, positioning themselves with a clear view of the Montenegro family. Their body language had shifted from casual observation to focused surveillance. "Everything okay?" Shante asked, noticing her husband's subtle tension. "Just enjoying the view," Marcus replied, though his CIA instincts were now fully activated. Something was building here, and his family was clearly the target. What he didn't know was that the officers had been expecting them, but what happened next would change everything. The peaceful morning atmosphere shattered when a young resort staff member approached their lounge chairs, his nervous energy barely contained beneath a forced professional smile. Marcus's CIA training immediately catalogued the man's body language, sweaty palms, darting eyes, the kind of anxiety that suggested he was following orders he didn't agree with. "Excuse me," the staff member said, his voice slightly shaky as he addressed Shante. "I'm going to need to see your room key. Just a routine verification." Marcus noticed that the young man hadn't made the same request of any other guests, despite families with children occupying lounges throughout the pool area. A quick scan revealed that every other family was white, a detail that made the selective enforcement impossible to ignore. Shante maintained her composure, though her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Oh, of course," she said, reaching into her beach bag to retrieve their keycard. Years of teaching had prepared her for confronting subtle discrimination with dignity and documentation. The staff member examined their keycard with exaggerated scrutiny, holding it up to the light as if checking for forgeries. His performance was clearly visible to other guests, creating exactly the kind of scene designed to make the Montenegro family feel unwelcome. "Thank you, Mrs. Montenegro," he said finally, though his tone suggested the verification had resolved nothing. "Please enjoy your stay." As he walked away, Marcus noticed the two officers at the pool bar watching the interaction with satisfaction. The older one actually smiled, a cold expression that confirmed this had been orchestrated rather than routine. "Mom, watch this," Zaire called from the pool, executing a perfect underwater somersault that he'd been practicing all summer. His joy remained undiminished by the adult tensions swirling around him, though Marcus could see other children beginning to notice the unusual attention focused on their area. Shante clapped appropriately, but Marcus could feel her anger building. 15 years of marriage had taught him to recognize when his wife was shifting from patience into protective mode. Her students had benefited from that same fierce advocacy, but he worried about how it might escalate their current situation. "That was unnecessary," she said quietly, adjusting her position to keep Zaire in sight while creating a more defensive posture around their belongings. Marcus nodded, his own assessment growing more serious by the minute. The timing, the selective targeting, the officer's obvious involvement. This wasn't random harassment. Someone had identified his family as a problem requiring special attention. His mind raced through possibilities. His CIA cover identity was solid, designed to withstand casual scrutiny, but if someone had conducted deeper investigation, or if they'd somehow connected him to current operations, his family could be in serious danger. "Dad, can you time me?" Zaire asked, preparing for another underwater attempt. His complete trust in his parents' ability to protect him was both heartwarming and sobering. "Absolutely, champ," Marcus replied, checking his watch while maintaining peripheral awareness of the officers' positions. "Ready when you are." As Zaire disappeared beneath the surface, Marcus used the opportunity to conduct more detailed surveillance. The resort's security cameras were positioned strategically, but he noticed several blind spots that suggested deliberate planning, the kind of gaps that would allow certain activities to occur without documentation. His attention was drawn to a maintenance worker replacing poolside equipment near the cabanas. The man's movements seemed wrong, too observant, too coordinated with the officer's positioning. Marcus's operational experience recognized a surveillance network when he saw one. 22 seconds, he announced, as Zaire surfaced, gasping and grinning with accomplishment. Other guests smiled at the boy's enthusiasm, but Marcus noticed how their approval was tinged with sympathy, as if they recognized the family was being targeted. The officers began moving closer, their casual stroll designed to appear natural, while systematically reducing the distance to the Montenegro family. Marcus calculated angles and options, his mind automatically shifting into tactical mode, despite the civilian setting. "Honey," Shante said quietly, her teacher's instincts picking up on the approaching threat. "Maybe we should take a break for lunch." Before Marcus could respond, an elderly woman at a nearby lounger caught Shante's eye and gave a subtle shake of her head. The gesture was barely perceptible, but its meaning was clear. Don't leave now. Don't show fear. The woman had been watching the entire interaction, and her expression carried the weight of someone who'd witnessed this pattern before. She reached into her bag and discreetly activated her phone's camera, positioning it to capture the pool area. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with concern. Civilian witnesses could be valuable, but they could also become targets. His CIA training included protocols for protecting bystanders, but those protocols assumed operational authority he didn't currently possess. "Dad, I'm getting hungry," Zaire announced, though his stomach hadn't deterred him from immediately planning his next swimming adventure. "Just a few more minutes, buddy," Marcus replied, though his attention was fully focused on the approaching officers. Every instinct screamed that the real confrontation was about to begin. Little did anyone know what was coming. The officer's approach was textbook intimidation, calculated, public, and designed to maximize humiliation. Detective Logan Beaumont led the way, his weathered face carrying the kind of authority that came from years of unchecked power in a small community. His partner, Officer Keith Chambers, flanked him with aggressive confidence, hand resting casually near his service weapon. Marcus maintained his relaxed posture despite every CIA instinct screaming warnings. His operational training included extensive work on de-escalation, but he could see these men weren't interested in peaceful resolution. Their body language telegraphed violence barely held in check. "Ma'am," Beaumont announced loudly enough for surrounding guests to hear, "we're going to need to see some identification, and your room key." Shante looked up from her book, her expression carefully neutral despite the pounding of her heart. "I already showed my room key to your staff member less than an hour ago." "Well, now you can show it to us," Chambers interjected, his tone dripping with barely contained hostility. He stepped closer, using his height and position to loom over her lounge chair in a classic intimidation tactic. Other guests began turning their attention toward the confrontation, some pulling out phones, while others gathered their belongings to leave. The elderly woman who'd earlier warned them maintained her position, her phone discreetly recording the entire interaction. Zaire, still in the pool, paddled closer to the edge where his parents sat. His 8-year-old instincts recognized the change in atmosphere, though he couldn't fully understand the danger building around his family. "Officers," Marcus said calmly, rising from his chair with deliberate control, "is there a specific problem you need to address?" Beaumont's eyes locked onto Marcus with predatory interest. "The problem is people who don't know their place. People who think they can come to our town and act like they own the resort." The racist implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Several guests gasped audibly, while others began recording more openly. Marcus felt his carefully maintained civilian facade being tested by men who clearly had no intention of treating his family with basic human dignity. "We're registered guests," Shante said firmly, maintaining her teacher's professional tone despite the circumstances. "We have every right to use the facilities we're paying for." Chambers laughed, a sound devoid of humor that carried across the pool area. "Rights? You got the right to leave quietly before this gets complicated." Marcus's mind raced through options and consequences. His CIA training provided dozens of ways to neutralize both officers, but any physical action would blow his cover and potentially endanger his family. He needed to find another path through this escalating confrontation. "Dad?" Zair's voice carried across the water, small and worried. He'd pulled himself to the pool's edge, water dripping from his shark-print swim shorts as he tried to understand why strangers were being mean to his parents. The sound of his son's fear cut through Marcus's operational calculations like a blade. These men were traumatizing an 8-year-old child for the crime of existing while black in their territory. The injustice ignited something deeper than professional training, a father's protective fury that demanded action. "Look at that," Beaumont sneered, gesturing toward Zaire. "Already teaching them they're entitled to whatever they want. Kid needs to learn some boundaries." Several guests stood up, their expressions showing outrage at the officer's treatment of a child. The elderly woman spoke up from her lounger. "Officers, this family has done nothing wrong. They're quiet, respectful guests." "Ma'am," Chambers spun toward her, "you need to mind your own business before you become part of the problem." The threat against a witness crystallized Marcus's understanding of the situation. These weren't rogue officers having a bad day. They were part of a systematic campaign of intimidation that had operated unchallenged for years. His CIA background in dismantling criminal organizations recognized the pattern. "Gentlemen," Marcus said, his voice carrying a subtle authority that made both officers focus on him more intently, "I suggest we resolve this calmly." Beaumont stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space in a move designed to provoke reaction. "You suggesting something, boy? Because I'm thinking you and your family need to pack up and find somewhere more appropriate." The word dripped with racist contempt that sent ripples of shock through the watching crowd. Multiple phones were now recording the confrontation, capturing every word for potential evidence. Marcus felt the familiar calm that preceded action in dangerous situations. His CIA training included protocols for maintaining cover under extreme pressure, but those protocols assumed he was the only target. With his wife and son vulnerable, different calculations applied. "We're not going anywhere," Shante declared, standing beside her husband. Her teacher's courage had taken over. The same fierce advocacy that had protected countless students now focused on defending her family's dignity. Beaumont's hand moved toward his service weapon as Chambers stepped between the family and potential escape routes. What came next shocked everyone in the room. The confrontation exploded into violence with shocking suddenness. Beaumont grabbed Shantae's arm roughly, his fingers digging into her skin as he tried to force her toward the resort's exit. "I said move it, or we'll make you move." "Don't touch my mom!" Zaire screamed from the pool, his young voice carrying across the water as he watched strangers assault the person he trusted most in the world. Marcus's CIA training took over instantly. Years of operational conditioning overrode civilian restraint as he moved with fluid precision, his hand clamping down on Beaumont's wrist with enough pressure to make the detective release Shante immediately. "Federal agent," Marcus announced, his voice carrying absolute authority as he pulled his CIA credentials from his wallet. "Step back now." The effect was electric. Chambers stumbled backward, his aggressive posture crumbling as the implications hit him. Beaumont stared at the credentials in shocked disbelief, his weathered face draining of color as he processed what he was seeing. Around the pool, guests burst into spontaneous applause. Phones captured every moment as the power dynamic shifted completely. The elderly woman who'd been recording smiled with satisfaction, having documented the entire escalation leading to this revelation. "Your CIA," Chambers stammered, his earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist. "Operations officer," Marcus confirmed, helping Shante steady herself while keeping his credentials visible to the gathering crowd. "And you just assaulted a federal agent's family in front of multiple witnesses." Zaire swam to the pool's edge with rapid strokes, pulling himself out of the water to run to his parents. Marcus scooped him up with one arm, the boy's wet swim shorts soaking into his father's shirt as he clung tight. "I thought they were going to hurt you," Zaire whispered against his father's neck, his small body still trembling with adrenaline and fear. The resort's general manager, Karen Foster, came running with security personnel in tow. Her professional composure cracked as she took in the scene, two police officers backing away from a CIA operative, while guests recorded everything on their phones. "What's happening here?" she demanded, though her tone suggested she already knew more than she wanted to admit. "These officers just committed assault on a federal agent's family," Marcus replied, his training keeping his voice steady despite his internal fury. In front of multiple witnesses, all recorded. Beaumont tried to recover some authority. "This is our jurisdiction. We were responding to complaints about disruptive behavior." The elderly woman stood up, her phone still recording. "I saw everything. These men targeted this family from the moment they arrived. There was no disruptive behavior except theirs." Other guests murmured agreement, creating a chorus of support that left the officers isolated and exposed. Marcus noted how quickly civilian witnesses turned against obvious injustice when given permission to speak up. "You want to know what's really interesting?" Marcus continued, his CIA analytical mind piecing together patterns he'd observed. This selective harassment, the coordinated timing, the resort's advanced knowledge, someone's been planning this. Foster's face went pale. "I don't know what you're implying." Marcus looked directly at her, his operational experience reading guilt in her micro-expressions. "I'm implying that someone identified my family as a target and arranged for these officers to handle a problem. What I'm wondering is why." His mind was already working through the implications. CIA operations officers didn't accidentally stumble into small-town corruption schemes. Someone had either blown his cover or connected his presence to current intelligence activities. "Dad," Zaire said quietly, still clinging to his father, "are you really a secret agent like in the movies?" "Just something like that, buddy," Marcus replied, though his attention remained focused on the officers and resort management. His family's safety required understanding who had orchestrated this confrontation and why. Chambers was backing toward the exit, clearly wanting to escape before the situation deteriorated further. But Beaumont held his ground, his expression shifting from shock to calculation as he processed new information. "CIA," the detective repeated thoughtfully. "Interesting cover story, but we'll see what headquarters says about your credentials." The threat was barely veiled. These officers intended to verify his identity through official channels. If they had contacts in federal law enforcement, or if his current operation required deep cover, his family could still be in serious danger. Marcus felt Shantae's hand squeeze his arm, her touch conveying both pride and concern. She understood that their quiet family vacation had just become something much more dangerous and complex. Around the pool, resort guests were beginning to gather, drawn by the commotion and the shocking revelation that they'd witnessed federal agents confronting local corruption. The story was already spreading through social media as witnesses posted videos and updates. "If you're truly looking for justice, aren't you, Agent Montenegro?" Foster said quietly, her voice carrying undertones that suggested she knew more about his presence than coincidence would explain. But the truth was even more shocking. Marcus maintained his protective stance around his family, while his operational mind processed the resort manager's loaded comment. Foster's words carried implications that went far beyond casual conversation. She knew something about his CIA identity that she shouldn't have access to. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "I'm here on vacation with my family." Nothing more. But even as he spoke, his trained eyes were cataloging details he'd missed during their casual arrival. The resort's security cameras were positioned with military precision, covering angles that suggested professional surveillance rather than simple guest monitoring. The maintenance staff moved with the kind of coordination that indicated communication beyond normal hospitality operations. Foster's smile carried secrets as she gestured toward the officers. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private, away from the guests." Before Marcus could respond, Shantae stepped forward. Her teacher's instincts had kicked into high gear, and she wasn't about to let anyone separate her family in this volatile situation. "We're not going anywhere private with people who just assaulted us," she said firmly. "If you have something to say, you can say it right here." The elderly woman who'd been recording approached with purposeful steps. "I'm Helen Washington," she announced to the group. "I've been coming to this resort for 12 years. and I've never seen anything like this before. She held up her phone, the video still recording. But what I have seen is other families, always minorities, having similar problems. Problems that seem to resolve themselves when they check out early. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. The systematic harassment, the coordinated response, the resort management's obvious complicity. This wasn't random racism. It was an organized operation designed to maintain the resort's demographic composition through intimidation. "If you're looking into justice issues, Agent Montenegro," Foster said quietly, "you might be interested in knowing that our security systems capture more than just pool incidents." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus's CIA training recognized it as either a threat or an invitation. Someone with access to extensive surveillance footage wanted to bargain. Zaire, still clinging to his father, whispered, "Dad, I don't like her. She feels scary like the police officers." Children's instincts often proved remarkably accurate in dangerous situations. Marcus trusted his son's assessment while filing it alongside his own growing concerns about their circumstances. Beaumont and Chambers had regrouped near the pool bar, their conversation too quiet to overhear, but their body language suggesting they were coordinating next steps. Marcus noticed one of them making a phone call, probably reporting the CIA revelation to supervisors. "What kind of security footage?" Shante asked. Her teacher's protective instincts focused on understanding threats to her family. Foster glanced around at the watching guests before leaning closer. "The kind that shows what really happens in our VIP suites. What certain guests don't know they're being recorded. What powerful people pay significant money to keep private." Marcus felt his CIA analytical mind shift into high gear. Hidden cameras in guest suites represented a massive federal crime, invasion of privacy, potential blackmail, interstate commerce violations. If Foster was admitting to such operations, she was either desperate or setting a trap. "You're talking about illegal surveillance," he said carefully, loud enough for witness phones to capture. "Recording guests without consent in private accommodations." "I'm talking about insurance," Foster replied. "Documentation that protects certain interests when situations become complicated." Helen Washington stepped closer, her phone still recording. "Are you saying you've been filming guests in their private rooms?" Foster's professional composure finally cracked. Sometimes security requires methods that guests don't fully appreciate. Wealthy visitors expect their privacy to be protected from outside scrutiny. The admission sent ripples through the watching crowd. Marcus realized they'd stumbled into something far larger than simple racist harassment. The resort was operating an illegal surveillance and potential blackmail network, using police intimidation to silence anyone who might discover their operations. His presence as a CIA officer investigating justice issues had triggered automatic defensive responses from a criminal organization that couldn't afford federal scrutiny. What had begun as a family vacation was now an active operation with national security implications. "Mom," Zaire said quietly, tugging on Shantae's cover-up, "are they the bad guys you and Dad always told me about?" Shante pulled him closer while meeting her husband's eyes. Years of marriage had taught her to recognize when Marcus's professional instincts took over, and she could see him transitioning from protective father to operational agent. "Sometimes, baby," she told Zaire, "bad guys hide behind uniforms and fancy buildings, but the good guys always find them eventually." Marcus felt his wife's quiet strength reinforcing his own resolve. Whatever criminal network they'd uncovered, his family deserved safety and justice. His CIA training provided tools for dismantling illegal operations, but first he needed to understand the full scope of what they were facing. Around the pool, guests were beginning to organize, sharing contact information and discussing what they'd witnessed. The wall of silence that had protected this system was crumbling in real time. That's when the real truth emerged. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young maintenance worker who'd been replacing poolside equipment suddenly approached the group, his face pale but determined. In his hand, he carried a small device that Marcus immediately recognized as a surveillance camera. "I can't do this anymore," the young man announced, his voice shaking. "They made me install these everywhere. Guest rooms, bathrooms, private balconies, everything gets recorded." The revelation hit like a physical blow. Foster lunged toward the worker, trying to grab the device, but Marcus intercepted her smoothly. His CIA training allowed him to secure the evidence while maintaining control of the situation. "You fool!" Foster snarled at the maintenance worker. "You have no idea what you've just destroyed." "My name's David Chen," the young man continued, addressing the recording phones of multiple witnesses. "I've been installing illegal cameras for 2 years. They told me it was for security, but they use the footage to blackmail guests. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, anyone with money or power." Marcus examined the tiny camera, his technical training confirming its sophisticated nature. This wasn't amateur surveillance equipment. Someone had invested serious money in creating an extensive network capable of capturing high-definition footage without detection. Shante kept Zaire close while processing the horrifying implications. "You've been recording families with children?" David nodded miserably. "They especially target mixed-race families, minority executives, anyone who might challenge their operations if they found out. The police help silence anyone who gets suspicious." Helen Washington, still recording everything, stepped forward with obvious anger. "How many families have you traumatized to protect this sick operation?" Beaumont and Chambers had moved closer, clearly trying to hear the conversation while calculating their options. Marcus noticed both officers checking their phones repeatedly, probably coordinating with supervisors about how to handle a CIA agent who'd uncovered their criminal network. "The cameras connect to a central server," David continued, his courage growing as he realized the protection offered by multiple witnesses. "Everything gets stored and catalogued. They have thousands of hours of footage from VIP guests who never knew they were being recorded." Marcus felt his operational instincts taking over completely. This was no longer about his family's vacation. They'd uncovered a federal crime network that threatened national security. If foreign intelligence services had access to blackmail material on American political and business leaders, the implications were staggering. "Where's the server located?" he asked, his voice carrying CIA authority. Foster tried to interrupt. "This is private property. You have no jurisdiction here." "Actually," Marcus replied, pulling out his phone, "surveillance of American citizens without consent is absolutely federal jurisdiction. And blackmail of public officials constitutes a national security threat." He began dialing back up while keeping his family within arm's reach. Years of CIA operations had taught him that criminal networks become most dangerous when cornered, and everyone involved in this system now faced serious prison time. Zaire, overwhelmed by the adult tension around him, started crying quietly. The sight of his 8-year-old son's tears, while processing the knowledge that they'd been violated in their private suite, sent Marcus's protective fury into overdrive. "It's okay, buddy," Shante whispered, holding their son close. "Dad's going to make sure the bad guys can't hurt anyone else." Around the pool, the crowd of guests was growing as word spread through the resort. Marcus could see people checking their phones and making calls, probably alerting family members and lawyers about potential privacy violations. "How many resorts are involved in this network?" Helen Washington asked David, her journalistic instincts focused on exposing the full scope of the operation. "At least 6 that I know of," David replied, "all along the coast, all targeting the same type of guests. They share footage and coordinate which families to pressure into leaving early." The systematic nature of the operation confirmed Marcus's assessment. This was organized crime masquerading as hospitality business. His CIA training included extensive work on dismantling networks that used legitimate businesses as fronts for illegal activities. His phone connected to FBI counterintelligence, the appropriate agency for handling domestic surveillance crimes with potential foreign connections. "This is Operations Officer Marcus Montenegro, CIA. I need immediate federal response at Ocean View Beach Resort. We have uncovered an extensive illegal surveillance network with potential national security implications." What followed would destroy everything. The FBI response was swift and overwhelming. Within 30 minutes, black SUVs surrounded the resort while federal agents in tactical gear secured all entrances. Marcus had positioned his family in the resort's main lobby, using civilian witnesses as protection while maintaining communication with arriving federal forces. Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI Counterintelligence Division, approached with the kind of professional efficiency that Marcus recognized from his own CIA operations. Her team had already begun securing evidence and separating witnesses for individual interviews. "Agent Montenegro," she said, extending credentials for verification, "your report triggered a priority response. We've been tracking suspicious activities at several coastal resorts, but this is our first solid break." Marcus nodded, relieved to have federal backup, but still maintaining protective positioning around Shante and Zaire. His son had stopped crying but remained unusually quiet, processing events far beyond his 8-year-old understanding. "The surveillance network extends beyond this location," Marcus reported. "Multiple resorts, coordinated operations, systematic targeting of minority families and potential blackmail of high-value guests." Agent Chen's expression hardened. "We suspected as much. 3 senators and a federal judge have reported suspicious approaches following stays at similar resorts. We couldn't connect the dots until your evidence." Around them, the resort buzzed with federal activity. Guests were being interviewed in small groups, while technical teams began dismantling surveillance equipment. David Chen, the maintenance worker who'd blown the whistle, was providing detailed information about camera locations and server access. Foster had been taken into federal custody, along with several other management staff. Her earlier confidence had evaporated completely when faced with federal charges that could result in decades of prison time. Detective Beaumont and Officer Chambers sat in the lobby under federal supervision, their racist bravado replaced by obvious panic as they realized the scope of their legal exposure. Assaulting a CIA officer's family was bad enough, but participating in a surveillance network that compromised national security elevated their charges to federal felonies. "Dad," Zaire whispered, tugging on Marcus's sleeve, "are we safe now?" Marcus knelt to his son's level, meeting those trusting 8-year-old eyes. "We're safe, champ. The bad guys can't hurt anyone anymore." But even as he spoke, Marcus's operational instincts remained alert. Criminal networks didn't collapse quietly, and someone higher up the chain might decide that eliminating witnesses was preferable to facing federal prosecution. Helen Washington approached with her phone still recording, though now she was documenting federal agents at work rather than local corruption. "Agent Montenegro, as someone who witnessed this entire incident, I want to thank you for having the courage to stand up." Other guests gathered around, many expressing similar gratitude while sharing their own experiences of subtle harassment during previous visits. The pattern was becoming clear. The resort had been systematically driving away any guests who might notice or investigate their illegal operations. Agent Chen returned from coordinating with her technical team. "We've located the main server room. The footage archive is massive, thousands of hours spanning 2 years. This is one of the largest domestic surveillance operations we've seen." Shante spoke up, her teacher's protective instincts focused on other potential victims. "What about the families who were forced to leave, the ones who were too afraid to report what happened?" "We'll be reaching out to identify and interview all potential victims," Agent Chen assured her. "Your family's courage in standing up has given others permission to come forward." Marcus watched as more federal vehicles arrived, bringing specialists in cybercrime and counterintelligence. The operation was expanding rapidly as the full scope of the criminal network became apparent. "Mom," Zaire said quietly, "can we go home now?" Shante looked at Marcus, knowing that their vacation was definitely over, but understanding that their fight for justice was just beginning. "Soon, baby. Dad needs to help the good guys catch all the bad guys first." Agent Chen overheard their conversation. "Actually, we'll need your family to remain available for ongoing investigation. This network appears to have connections to foreign intelligence services. Your CIA clearance makes you valuable for understanding the broader implications." Marcus nodded, though he felt Shante's tension increase. Extending their involvement meant continued danger, but it also meant ensuring that justice was fully served and other families were protected. Around the pool area, federal agents were methodically documenting evidence while guests provided statements. The atmosphere had shifted from fear to hope as people realized they were witnessing the dismantling of a system that had operated with impunity for years. "The local police chief is in custody," Agent Chen reported. along with 3 other officers and 2 county officials. Your confrontation triggered confessions from multiple participants who don't want to face federal conspiracy charges. Marcus felt satisfaction at the news, but his CIA training reminded him that the most dangerous phase was often after initial arrests. Someone with serious financial investments in this network would be calculating whether eliminating witnesses might be worth the risk. The consequences were just beginning. The full scope of the criminal conspiracy became clear in the resort's main conference room, where federal agents had established a command center. Multiple screens displayed organizational charts, financial records, and surveillance footage that painted a picture of corruption reaching far beyond local law enforcement. Marcus stood before a panel of FBI and CIA officials, his family safely positioned nearby under federal protection. Zaire played quietly with coloring books, while Shante graded papers she'd brought for the vacation, both finding normalcy in familiar activities while extraordinary events unfolded around them. The network spans 8 states, Agent Chen reported to the assembled federal officials. 12 luxury resorts, all targeting wealthy guests for surveillance and potential blackmail. The financial records show payments to local police, county officials, and at least 3 federal judges. Marcus studied the evidence displays with his CIA analytical training. The selection criteria for targets suggests foreign intelligence involvement. They're not just collecting random blackmail material, they're specifically targeting American officials with access to classified information or policy influence. A senior CIA counterintelligence officer nodded grimly. We've identified at least 30 current and former government officials who stayed at network properties during the surveillance period. The national security implications are staggering. The conference room door opened as federal marshals escorted Foster and the 2 police officers for formal questioning. Their earlier arrogance had been replaced by obvious terror as they realized the scope of federal charges they were facing. Mrs. Foster, Agent Chen began, you have the opportunity to cooperate with federal authorities in exchange for reduced sentencing. The surveillance network you operated represents multiple felonies with mandatory minimum sentences. Foster's composure cracked completely. You don't understand, we didn't have choice. They threatened our families if we didn't cooperate. Who threatened you? Marcus asked, his operational experience recognizing fear of higher authority. The people who provided the equipment, who bought the footage, they said they'd kill anyone who exposed the operation. Detective Beaumont shifted uncomfortably in his chair. She's telling the truth. We got involved because they had evidence of some mistakes we'd made. They said cooperation was the only way to protect our families. The admission confirmed Marcus's assessment. This was a sophisticated operation using blackmail and intimidation to build a network of compromised officials. Classic foreign intelligence methodology adapted for domestic surveillance. Agent Chen leaned forward. Who are they? We need names, locations, contact methods. Foster exchanged glances with the police officers before speaking. We never met them directly. All communication came through encrypted phones and anonymous bank transfers. But they knew everything about us, our families, our financial problems, our vulnerabilities. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. Professional intelligence operation. Compartmented communication, financial insulation, target identification through comprehensive background research. This is foreign espionage using criminal networks as cover. Zaire looked up from his coloring book. Dad, are you talking about spy stuff like in movies? Something like that, buddy, Marcus replied, though the reality was far more serious than any Hollywood portrayal. Shante squeezed her husband's hand, understanding that their family vacation had uncovered a threat to national security. Her teacher's protective instincts worried about other families who might still be vulnerable to this network. How many other families were targeted? She asked Foster directly. Foster's voice shook as she responded. Hundreds over 2 years. Anyone who might notice the surveillance, anyone with government connections, anyone whose harassment could be used to test our control over local authorities. The systematic nature of the operation sent chills through the federal officials. Marcus realized his family hadn't been random targets. His CIA cover identity had been compromised, making them a test case for the network's ability to neutralize federal threats. Officer Chambers spoke up nervously. There's something else. They're planning to destroy all evidence tonight, some kind of fail-safe protocol if federal authorities got involved. Agent Chen immediately activated her radio. All units, we need immediate security on the server location. Suspects indicate evidence destruction is imminent. Through the conference room windows, Marcus could see additional federal vehicles arriving as the operation expanded rapidly. The local news had picked up the story, broadcasting live footage of the massive federal response. "Mom," Zaire said quietly, watching the activity outside. "Everyone's going to know about what happened to us." Shante pulled him close. "Sometimes brave people have to stand up in public, so other people know it's okay to be brave too." Marcus felt pride in his wife's wisdom. Their family's courage in refusing to be intimidated had exposed a network that threatened countless other families and national security itself. But as federal agents coordinated their response, Marcus's operational instincts warned him that cornered intelligence networks often became most dangerous when facing complete exposure. What happened next would surprise everyone. The night sky erupted in controlled chaos as federal tactical teams surrounded the server facility, hidden in an industrial complex 20 miles from the resort. Marcus monitored the operation from the FBI command center, his CIA clearance granting him access to real-time intelligence as agents moved to secure evidence before it could be destroyed. "We've got movement inside the facility," Agent Chen reported through her radio headset. "Multiple subjects attempting to access the servers." Marcus studied the facility blueprints on tactical displays, his operational experience identifying potential escape routes and defensive positions. "They'll try to wipe the drives remotely if they can't physically destroy them. We need to cut all external communications." At the resort, Shante kept Zaire close while watching news coverage of the unfolding federal operation. Multiple networks had picked up the story, with reporters describing it as one of the largest domestic surveillance scandals in recent history. "Look, Mom," Zaire pointed to the television screen where their resort appeared in aerial footage. "That's where we were swimming." The innocence in his voice contrasted sharply with the serious federal response surrounding them. Shante marveled at her son's resilience, how he processed extraordinary events while maintaining his 8-year-old perspective on the world. "Dad's helping catch the bad guys," she told him, though her own anxiety about Marcus's safety made it difficult to maintain a calm voice. Back at the command center, Marcus received urgent updates from the tactical team. "We've breached the facility, but the subjects triggered some kind of automatic deletion protocol. Our tech team is racing to recover data before it's permanently destroyed." The stakes were enormous. If the surveillance network successfully destroyed evidence, dozens of compromised officials might escape prosecution, while foreign intelligence services retained whatever information they'd already acquired. Agent Chen coordinated multiple response teams while keeping Marcus informed of developments. "Your family's courage in standing up triggered this entire operation. Without your refusal to be intimidated, we never would have uncovered this network." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility mixed with pride. His CIA training had prepared him for dangerous operations, but involving his family in national security threats hadn't been part of any mission plan. His phone buzzed with an encrypted message from CIA headquarters. "Network appears connected to Operation Blackwater investigation. Your cover may have been deliberately blown to test response capabilities." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. His family hadn't stumbled into this situation accidentally. They'd been specifically targeted by foreign intelligence services, testing American security responses. "Agent Montenegro," Agent Chen called urgently. "We need you at the facility. The technical team found something that requires CIA analysis." Marcus looked toward his family, torn between operational duty and protective instincts. Shante caught his eye and nodded understanding, her teacher's strength supporting his professional responsibilities. "Go," she said quietly. "We'll be safe here with federal protection. Other families need you to finish this." The drive to the industrial facility took Marcus through quiet suburban streets where families slept peacefully, unaware that their government was dismantling a surveillance network that threatened democratic institutions. At the facility, federal agents had secured 3 suspects attempting to destroy evidence. Marcus recognized their professional demeanor and sophisticated equipment as indicators of serious intelligence training. "Agent Montenegro," the technical team leader called as Marcus entered the server room. "We recovered partial data, but what we found is extremely concerning." Multiple screens displayed organizational charts showing the surveillance network's connections to foreign intelligence services. Financial records revealed payments from accounts linked to hostile nations, while communication logs showed coordination with agents throughout North America. "Your family was specifically selected," the technical analyst explained, highlighting classified files containing detailed background information on Marcus's CIA career. "They knew exactly who you were when you arrived at the resort. The targeting had been deliberate and sophisticated, using his family's vulnerability to test whether American intelligence officers could be intimidated into silence about criminal activities." Marcus felt his protective fury building as he realized his wife and son had been put in danger as part of a foreign intelligence operation designed to compromise American security. "How many other CIA families have been targeted?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "At least 12 that we've identified so far," Agent Chen replied. "All approached through what appeared to be random civilian encounters that were actually carefully orchestrated tests." The scope of the operation was breathtaking in its audacity and sophistication. Foreign intelligence services had infiltrated American hospitality businesses to create surveillance networks capable of compromising government officials and testing security responses. Marcus's phone rang with another encrypted message from CIA headquarters. "Evidence suggests this is only one node of a larger network. Your family's resistance may have prevented much broader compromise of American intelligence capabilities." Around the server room, federal agents continued recovering data, while technical specialists worked to understand the full extent of the surveillance network's reach and capabilities. The final impact would change everything forever. 6 months after the resort confrontation, Marcus stood in the FBI's main conference room in Washington, D.C., his eyes watching as federal prosecutors presented their case against the largest domestic surveillance network in American history. His family's courage in refusing to be intimidated had triggered an investigation that exposed foreign intelligence operations across 12 states. Detective Logan Beaumont and Officer Keith Chambers sat at the defendant's table, their faces showing the weight of federal charges including conspiracy, civil rights violations, and treason. The racism that had driven their initial assault on the Montenegro family had evolved into something far more serious when their cooperation with foreign intelligence services was revealed. The defendants participated in a systematic campaign of harassment designed to silence American families who might expose illegal surveillance operations, Federal Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh announced to the packed courtroom. Their actions constituted not just civil rights violations, but active participation in foreign intelligence operations against the United States. Marcus felt Shante squeeze his hand as they watched from the gallery. Zaire, now 9 years old, sat between them with the quiet dignity he'd developed after becoming an inadvertent hero in a national security case. Karen Foster, the former resort manager, had received a 20-year sentence in exchange for her cooperation in exposing the broader network. Her testimony had revealed the systematic nature of operations designed to compromise American officials through surveillance and blackmail. What we discovered at Ocean View Beach Resort was just one node of a sophisticated network, Agent Chen testified from the witness stand. The Montenegro family's refusal to be silenced exposed operations that threatened fundamental American democratic institutions. The courtroom gallery was filled with other families who had been targeted by the surveillance network. Helen Washington, the elderly woman who had recorded the original pool confrontation, sat in the front row with dozens of other witnesses who had found courage to speak out. Marcus noticed how many of the families were minorities, confirming his analysis that the network had specifically targeted Americans who might be perceived as less likely to receive official support if they reported harassment. The financial records show payments exceeding $12 million from foreign intelligence services, Prosecutor Walsh continued. Money used to compromise American officials, silence potential witnesses, and test our national security responses. Beaumont's attorney attempted to argue that his client had been coerced into cooperation, but the evidence of enthusiastic participation in racist harassment undermined any claims of reluctance. "My clients made mistakes," the defense attorney argued, "but they were manipulated by sophisticated foreign agents who exploited their biases and financial vulnerabilities." The judge, Federal District Judge Patricia Williams, wasn't impressed. The defendants' racist attitudes made them willing participants in operations that threatened American security. Their assault on the Montenegro family was not an aberration. It was part of a systematic pattern of intimidation. During recess, Marcus walked with his family through the courthouse halls, where reporters waited to capture updates on what media had dubbed the resort scandal. Their story had become a symbol of how ordinary American families could stand up to both domestic corruption and foreign threats. "Dad," Zaire asked quietly, "are we famous now?" "We're not famous, buddy," Marcus replied, kneeling to his son's level. "We're just a family that refused to let bad guys win." Shante smiled at her husband's wisdom. Their experience had changed all of them, but it had also revealed strengths they hadn't known they possessed. When court reconvened, Judge Williams delivered sentences that reflected the severity of the crimes. Beaumont received 35 years for treason and conspiracy, while Chambers got 28 years for his role in the network. "The defendants' actions went far beyond simple racism," Judge Williams stated. "They participated in foreign intelligence operations designed to compromise American democratic institutions. Their assault on the Montenegro family was an act of treason disguised as local harassment." The sentences sent a clear message that American courts would treat collaboration with foreign intelligence services as the serious national security threat it represented. After the hearing, Marcus and his family were approached by dozens of other victims who wanted to express gratitude for their courage in standing up. Many had been afraid to report their experiences until the Montenegro family's case made it safe to come forward. "Thank you for not backing down," said Dr. Patricia Johnson, an African-American physician who had been harassed at a different resort in the network. "Your courage gave the rest of us permission to speak our truth." Marcus felt the profound satisfaction that came from knowing their refusal to accept injustice had protected other families and exposed threats to national security. As they left the courthouse, Shante pulled out her phone to check messages from her students, who had been following the case with great interest. Her classroom had become a place where children learned about courage, justice, and the importance of standing up to bullies. "Mom," Zaire said as they walked toward their car, "can we go swimming again soon?" The question made all three of them laugh, remembering how their family vacation had started with such innocent plans. What happened next would surprise everyone. 1 year later, the Montenegro family returned to the ocean, this time at a public beach in California, where Marcus had been reassigned to the CIA's Los Angeles field office. The federal investigation he had triggered continued to uncover foreign intelligence networks across the country, leading to the largest counterintelligence operation since the Cold War. Zaire, now a confident 9-year-old, ran into the waves with the kind of fearless joy that came from knowing his parents would protect him from any threat. His experience at Ocean View Beach Resort had taught him that standing up to bullies was not only possible, but necessary. "Look how far he's swimming now," Shante observed, watching their son navigate the Pacific surf with expert strokes. Her year of testimony and advocacy had led to her appointment as a consultant for the Department of Education's Civil Rights Division, helping schools recognize and address systematic discrimination. Marcus relaxed in his beach chair, finally able to enjoy a family day without operational concerns. The surveillance network they had exposed had been completely dismantled, with over 200 arrests across multiple states and significant reforms in how federal agencies monitored domestic intelligence threats. "Agent Montenegro," a voice interrupted their peaceful morning. Marcus looked up to see Special Agent Chen approaching with her own family, a husband and 2 young children who immediately gravitated towards Zaire in the universal language of beach play. "Sarah," Marcus stood to greet his former FBI colleague, "how's retirement treating you?" "Couldn't be better," Chen replied, settling into the sand beside them. "Though I have to admit, I miss the adrenaline of major cases." Her successful management of the resort investigation had led to a promotion and eventual early retirement, allowing her to spend more time with her own family while serving as a consultant on counterintelligence matters. "The network we uncovered keeps expanding," she updated them. "International cooperation has revealed similar operations in Canada, Mexico, and 3 European countries. Your family's courage to stand up literally exposed a global threat." Shante watched the children playing together in the surf, their laughter mixing with the sound of waves. "Sometimes I still can't believe how much changed from one pool confrontation." "Courage is contagious," Chen observed. "When people see one family refuse to accept injustice, it gives others permission to speak up too." The truth of her words was evident in the reforms that had followed their case. New federal oversight of local police departments, mandatory civil rights training for hospitality workers, and enhanced protection for whistleblowers who reported surveillance activities. Marcus's phone buzzed with a message from Helen, Washington, the elderly woman whose recording had captured their pool confrontation. She had become a civil rights activist at 73, using her experience to help other seniors recognize and report discrimination. "Helen's speaking at a conference next week about bystander intervention," he told Shante. Her video has been viewed 12 million times. The viral spread of their story had created a cultural shift in how Americans responded to witnessed injustice. The phrase Montenegro moment had entered popular usage, describing situations where ordinary people chose courage over compliance. "Dad, Mom, come see this." Zaire called from the water's edge, where he and Chen's children had discovered a tide pool filled with colorful sea creatures. His voice carried the same excitement that had characterized their original vacation plans, but now it was tempered with deeper understanding of the world's complexities. As they walked toward their son, Marcus felt Shante take his hand. "Do you ever regret how everything unfolded?" she asked quietly. Marcus considered the question seriously. Their quiet family vacation had become a national news story, their privacy sacrificed to expose threats to democratic institutions. But looking at Zaire's confidence, at Shante's expanded career in civil rights advocacy, at the hundreds of families who had found courage through their example, the answer was clear. "Never," he replied firmly. "We showed him that justice is possible when people refuse to accept injustice." The afternoon sun painted golden reflections on the water as the Montenegro family played with their new friends on a public beach where everyone belonged. Around them, other families of all backgrounds enjoyed the simple freedom of a day at the ocean. Thank you to everyone who typed courage and to all who shared their locations from around the world. Your global support means everything. If these stories inspire you, please subscribe to join our community and help us share more incredible tales of courage and justice. Until next time, keep believing in the power of truth.